Oddly enough, this image, I painted this one several years ago with my teacher, and it was done by a Russian Orthodox monastery in Jordanville, New York. It's important to note the three cruciform bars on the icon and three lines in each one. They can refer as a foreshadowing of the crucifixion. They can refer to the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or the three natures of God and Jesus in human and divine form. The first iconographer. This is a Serbian icon dating to the 1700s, and it shows St. Luke, the Apostle Luke. Luke was both, well, he was an apostle, a physician, and the first iconographer. Here he is shown painting an image of Virgin Mary and baby Jesus. It's believed he painted 3 or 4 of these images, all of which are reportedly believed to be in Russia. The red band that is often seen on buildings, supposedly in Jerusalem, symbolizes the curtains in the Temple of Jerusalem. And also it's the tradition that Luke actually painted on a table made by Joseph rather than an easel. An easel is probably a more modern construction. An icon of the Annunciation. You have lived until you painted the Annunciation and labeled it as the Dormition of the Theotokos, the Sent of Mary. This is a Neo-Byzantine image showing Gabriel with red wings, which are typical of Byzantine paintings. The Holy Spirit, the Sent. The Holy Spirit and Mary enthroned on a bench and cushions. And here she typically is shown reading cloth that was intended for the temple in Jerusalem. 3 stars on Mary's robe symbolize virginity, her virginity before the birth of Jesus, afterwards, and in perpetuity. Again, another long-standing tradition in iconography in the church. St. Joseph. This again is also a Byzantine image, distinguished by the fact that Joseph is carrying Madonna lilies and 2 doves for sacrifice at the temple. In Western images, Joseph would normally be shown carrying carpenter's tools or measuring sticks, whatever. I think that this image with my teacher, I think in about 2020, and at the age of about 73, I had never noticed that mourning doves have 8 feet, and unfortunately they're not shown very well here. But if you look at mourning doves closely, you will see they have 8 feet. Traditionally, Joseph was believed to be 56 years old, which was a very old man for those times. Hence the white hair and the white beard that you'll always see in Joseph. One of the funny things that the unconscious things it squeezes into icons. When my facial hair is longer, my whiskers tend to squeeze into the center, just like this. However, in the image that I was painting, the whiskers were straight. I don't know how it got changed like that, but it's one of those unconscious things that happen with your painting. And one of the women in our painting group in Niagara Falls is of Egyptian heritage, and she has the classic facial figures of Middle Eastern peoples, large eyes, large facial features. And in all the female images she paints, it's the same thing. They all look like her, big eyes, big facial features. I'm sure she's totally unconscious of the change. The prominent forehead is a symbol of wisdom. And you see that very frequently in icons.
Is he crying?
No.
He's just got allergies. It's the lilies.
That's the best explanation. I don't know. This configuration is very common, and I haven't the foggiest notion why, but I've seen this and painted this many times. I should know, but I don't. Oh, my favorite, Saint Simeon, the God-bearer. You'll remember that when Jesus was presented at the temple, he was carried by Saint Simeon, who in a vision had been told he would live until the Messiah arrived. Simeon is always portrayed with very long hair, long beard. You'll see the Greek symbols inside the halo and also outside. And characteristically in icons of Jesus Christ, you'll be holding a scroll or a book symbolizing the Gospels. Mary and Jesus. This is a contemporary icon painted by a lovely man that I met in Combermere, Ontario, near the Donna House, Polish-Canadian gentleman, very attached to his Polish heritage. He normally paints original icons. This one, he painted in tribute or in memory of that dreadful plane crash that took place in Poland in 2010, when almost the entire elite of the Polish government and the Polish military were killed. And ironically, the plane was on its way to a village in Poland, Western Poland, for a memorial and commemoration of the Polish soldiers and officers who were massacred by Nazi soldiers. It was sad irony. And this is very, you'll see the three stars on Mary. Her robe is red symbolizing love, compassion, caregiving, but it also symbolizes martyrdom. Again, Jesus is carrying a small scroll symbolizing the Gospels, and his hands are held, or his hand, the right hand in the blessing posture. And Mary her hand usually is pointing towards Jesus, drawing attention to him and away from herself. And also, characteristically, Jesus is enthroned on her left thigh, holding him. Why does baby Jesus look like a mature man, an old man, or Neil Diamond in 60s and 70s? The tradition is that, and belief, Jesus was born fully formed, fully mature, couldn't get any better. There's no grounds, no room for improvement in Jesus from his birth onwards. Hence, the really unusual hairstyle, and often facial features that will show age. The other reason for the hair in sort of male ag baldness or receding hairline, it emphasizes forehead, the large forehead, which is a symbol of wisdom. This is an icon of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. We painted this, my teacher chose this out of respect for the Carmelite Monastery in Niagara Falls, Ontario, where we go 3 times a year to paint. And we're just treated so well there by the Carmelite friars. The food is incredible, it's out of this world, and we really do have a lot of fun. When I went to my first retreat in 2013, I thought, and it was sort of at the request of my wife, I thought, oh, this is going to be all meditation and silence and praying. We spent the whole time laughing. My teacher, Philip Zimmerman from Pennsylvania, is a natural-born storyteller. He's funny. He was born and raised in the hillbilly country of Pennsylvania and Kentucky. And he has got more crazy stories than I've had hot dinners. But to make a long story short, we did this one as a tribute to the monastery and the Carmelites. Normally, a Carmelite image of Mary will show her wearing a crown, and Jesus is holding, or Mary is holding the scapular, which Carmelite monks and nuns wear around their neck. And again, down here, you can barely see the little scroll of the Gospels that Jesus is holding. This is a more affectionate image of Jesus and Mary. However, you've got to recognize the pensive look on her face, as the tradition is that she knows what's coming. She can see the future, given that St. Simeon in the temple said, a sword will pierce your heart. This band, armband in gold and made in gold, is a symbol of divinity. It's always shown on Jesus and often in coins on images of saints. Oh, Our Lady of Czestochowa, the Black Madonna of Hope. This is a wonderful icon to paint, but it's torturous and tedious. One of the more arcane members of our group counted all these decorations on the garments, and he came up with 64 embellishments. I've never been able to paint that many, but I've painted seven icons of Mary and Jesus. They're all over the place. There are two in private homes in Kingston, 2 in my home, a large one that I'll show you tomorrow in the Polish apostolate at Holy Name of Jesus Church in Kingston Mills. There's one in Ireland, there's one in Brazil, and one hanging in the Franciscan Church in Rye, England, where my wife and I like to holiday. And again, it's got all the typical and classic features of a Byzantine icon, Mary with the star symbolizing her virginity. Jesus holding a gospel. Again, the very mature hair and look on his face. There are just endless interesting stories about this icon. The slashes on her face. The story is that a Turkish soldier slashed the icon and immediately dropped dead. In another image, there's an arrow mark in the throat, and the archer dropped dead on the spot. The icon apparently has been restored and redone many times over the millennia. And tradition is that these slash marks always reappear every time the icon is restored. Again, it's attributed to the Apostle Luke. It was held in Constantinople for generations. When Constantinople was being threatened by Islamic armies, it was taken through many hands to remove it from danger. It finally ended up in the hands of a Polish nobleman who was going to take it to his castle in Poland. He and his horse and the icon got to the village of Czestochowa. The horse would go no further. So we took this as a sign that the icon was supposed to stay there. So we took it to the monastery of Jasna Gora. I'd like to say at the outset that this is probably the holiest and most venerated image in Poland. The chapel where it's held is constantly jam-packed with people. The reason it's known as the Black Madonna is because of the eons of incense breathing on it. Normally, the icon is covered by an oak-clad. People donate gold, silver, jewels, and coverings are made of the icon. They're replaced daily. They cover the whole icon except for the faces. The tradition, I don't know whether it's to protect and preserve the icon, but it's a wonderful icon to paint, except for the incredible tediousness of all of this, the embellishments. The gold leaf, this is pure gold leaf. It's applied by my teacher in class. He won't let us touch gold leaf. The traditional size of gauge of gold leaf is 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 inches. That's worth about $5 American. So we keep our lunchbooks off gold leaf. I have a bunch of artificial gold leaf at home and some real gold leaf, but I still haven't mastered how to attach it. Gold leaf is traditionally attached with rabbets or glue. It takes quite a while to find sort of the perfect spot for the stickiness of the glue. You put it on too fast, too early, the glue will spread out over the painting. If you don't put it on at the right time, the gold leaf will stick. But it has all the traditional features except for the Greek nomenclature. Jesus is holding the gospel here. Mary is pointing to her son and away from herself. And Jesus is making the sign of the Blessed. St. John the Baptist. I really have mixed feelings about this icon. I'm not at all comfortable with the red wings, which is the tradition in Eastern Orthodox iconography. It seems a bit satanic to me. I've seen many pictures of John the Baptist in the Orthodox tradition, and they all have red wings. There were some challenges to this one to get the facial features of piety, veneration, and humility. The first time I painted the face, it had one big eye in the middle of the forehead. He looked like a gorgon. Normally, I paint hair really well, and I'm really happy with hair. But with this one, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I just was really upset with what I had done. So I quietly went up to our painting room and painted everything out and started all over again, because I didn't want to embarrass myself by painting again in front of all of these absolute iconographists. It was too humiliating. I should have said at the outset that in my heart of hearts, I don't think of myself as an iconographer. I think of myself as an iconophile or an iconodual. An iconodual, one who loves icons. Or did I say that already? But I like this image overall. The features of piety, humility in his face and in his hands, the camel hair shirt that he wore. Now this is known as Deesis, D-E-E-S-I-S. That's the most common spelling. It's found in all Orthodox churches. It's always in this configuration. Mary, Jesus, and John the Baptist has all the usual features. Mary is wearing a red robe. Jesus is holding up the Gospels on his left thigh, making a blessing. it's always found in the iconostasis in the Greek Orthodox churches, the Eastern Orthodox churches. The hands of Mary and John are held out in supplication. They're asking for the salvation of the world through Jesus. This icon itself was in the collection of the Temple Gallery, a commercial gallery in London, England. It was sold in their spring auction this year for around $7,000 Canadian. And if you go over to the Temple Gallery in London, you can pick up an icon for $5,000–6,000. Mostly old Russian icons, some in fairly bad condition. I scavenged this from the internet, and my skills are very limited for downloading stuff. But down here, the real icon really shows some merit. It's not in the greatest shape, but somebody's willing to pay around $7,000 Canadian for it. But it's, I was trying to copy another book cover that I have of a much more contemporary version of the Jesus. But it's a very common icon. The resurrection. I've painted this one many times. I have quite a large one sitting unfinished in my home that I'm trying to work on the whole thing in gold and yellow and the background. So that version is really vibrant, but I really like this one. I painted it. I gave it to one friend, a Polish lady whose husband was dying. There are several items here that are highly symbolic of Byzantine iconography. The background in blue with stars symbolizing the Trinity, the infinite. The rays of light coming from Jesus is called a mandorla. Clouds around Jesus are called a nimbus, symbolizing his ascending to heaven. Normally, it's hard to make out here, but this is black. And normally, anything black on an icon refers to the underworld, to Hades, to hell. And you can see he's emerged from. And again, his hand, his right hand is held in the blessing posture. Saint Mary Magdalene. This is the first one I painted with my teacher. I love the Slavonic Cyrillic script. You can make all kinds of mistakes and nobody will know the difference. It's really hard to be a clear script without a lot of practice. But I really like Slavonic Cyrillic. The Eastern tradition is that Mary was a wealthy, influential woman, not a reformed prostitute. She was able to make her way to Rome and attended a dinner put on by the Emperor Tiberius, at which time she was preaching the gospel of the resurrection. Tiberius said to her, "A man can no more come back from the dead than you can turn an egg red." Here we are. It's holding it. The green drapery. This is the first, as I said, this is the first icon I painted. And I was really distressed because the drapery here is nowhere near the original image. I phoned my wife on Tuesday and said, "I'm coming home. This is not working." But she told me this thing. Wednesday, I painted her hair, and I was so happy. It just, on the first try, it came out really well. It's not really well shown because there's lots of different layers and different colors in the hair. But it came out really well, and also Mary was known for her luxuriant hair. And the iconography here shows that she was a wealthy woman. Okay, I'm going to squeeze in the handout here, the iconoclast. Somehow or other I lost the slide for that. Iconoclast, it can mean icon smashers in the real context. In the year 726, the Byzantine Emperor Leo III outlawed icons. He outlawed the production of icons. This was founded on Mosaic law and the second commandment of no graven images. And it's the long Jewish Middle Eastern history of not making human images. At the time, in 726, icons were destroyed all over the empire. Iconographers were murdered. The place of safekeeping for icons was in St. Catherine of Sinai Monastery in the middle of the Egyptian Sinai Desert. Yes?
The painting, is it all that color, or is there a big color and then
Oh, there's many layers here. And I'll try to explain that tomorrow, because I brought an unfinished icon in. But yeah, there's a lot of layers. Yeah, the Sinai Desert, St. Catherine of Sinai Monastery, the oldest continuously inhabited monastery in the world, founded in 526. My English teacher has been there many times to study the icons. She's a medievalist and an iconographer. And it's a bit of a tourism trap, really, but it's a great sanctity and amazing icons. See, when Leo III went to his reward, his wife Eudora overruled his policy in the year 787 and allowed icons to be prepared again. But along came Emperor Leo V, and he thought it would be an auspicious thing to do to once again abolish icons and forget icons, given that Islamic armies were attacking Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire. And as we know, human images are not permitted in the Islamic faith. Unfortunately, this policy increased the estrangement between the Western Church and the Eastern Church, as the papacy did not follow that policy and allowed icons, statues, and paintings to continue to be prepared. The savior of iconography was mainly St. John of Damascus. He wrote and preached a theology in support of icons and the painting. The reason being, and this is where my theology gets a little bit sketchy, the reason being that God had not manifested himself to humankind until the coming of the incarnation of Jesus as both divine and human. So in his human form, it was appropriate to copy images of Jesus. Oddly enough, St. John was protected by Islamic peoples living in Damascus and Jerusalem, recognizing the times in the tolerance that Islam had for Jews and Christians. Of course, that was destroyed 926 years ago, last week, when Jerusalem fell in the First Crusades on July 15th, 1099. We all know massive slaughter of Muslims, Christians, Jews, and women and children took place for about 2 days after July 15th. In 787, the Seventh Ecumenical Council, Nicaea II, decreed that icons could be painted and were worthy of veneration. And every subsequent council in Roman Church and also in the Orthodox Church, the validity of icons was reinforced as recently as 1987 by Pope John Paul II. The inexhaustible chalice of the most holy Theotokos. This is one of the last icons I painted for my t-shirt. It's a Russian icon, has all the usual iconography in it, the letters, the posture of blessing. Jesus is holding his fingers in the blessing position. Mary is holding her hands in the orans posture, meaning a blessing and piety and humility. You'll notice here that the table on which the chalice is resting is narrower at the front, wider at the back. In other words, it's coming forward towards the viewer. The story behind this icon, in 1887, it was discovered in a monastery somewhere in Russia by an alcoholic, lame Russian soldier. The soldier, because of chronic abuse of alcohol, was rendered lame. He had a vision which said, if you go to this particular monastery, you will find an icon which will cure you of your alcoholism. He poo-pooed it, but the vision came back to him several times until he finally said, well, I've got to go. He started off on his hands and knees. As he got closer to the monastery, he found strength returning. By the time he reached the monastery, he was able to walk. He persuaded the sisters to allow him to go through the monastery looking for the icon. And he wanted the inner reach. The sisters didn't know about this icon. They had completely forgotten it. And somewhere in the inner reaches of the monastery, the soldier came upon a caretaker who was the exact representation of the vision he had. It's the same person. The caretaker took him to the icon. The man lost his cravings for alcohol, and it became a very popular icon throughout Russia at the time. The original has been retained. 8 copies were made and were all destroyed during the Leninist, Stalinist period. Again, Mary is wearing a red robe, symbolizing both martyrdom and care. The 3 stars. Saint Ignatius of Antioch. Saint Ignatius was the bishop of Antioch, and he continued to refuse to obey Roman orders that do not preach the gospel, Christianity. So he was taken off to Rome to be martyred in around the year 1010 in the Common Era. On his journey to Rome, Ignatius wrote 7 letters which he gave to his friend St. Polycarp. And these letters were preserved. They do, I don't think the original letters exist, but they do exist in translation in Latin. And the letters form part of the early theology, the early basis of Christianity, along with the letters of St. Paul. It's a little bit difficult to distinguish here, but normally icons of St. Ignatius of Antioch show him with a very calm expression on his face. He craved martyrdom, wanted to be martyred, he wanted to be an example to the Christians of Rome. In fact, he wrote to the people of Rome not to pray that he be spared martyrdom. And as always, in all these icons of Ignatius of Antioch, there are 2 lions clawing away at him, one upright and one inverted. And unfortunately, I really, at the time, I didn't understand the story of his serenity during martyrdom, and also the image we were painting. it did show all these lines on his face, which sort of imply anxiety. But in fact, he was a very old man at the time, so that would be my excuse for all these lines. Hello?
Why is one line upside down?
I don't know. What do you think? You want to get the feet, the other one in the head. They're all the same. Always one's upright and one's.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what one would call a Neo-Byzantine icon of St. Francis of Assisi. I've done several versions of this. One's with my mother-in-law in Rio de Janeiro. It shows the stigmata. The most prominent part of this icon, it attempts to show the austerities that Francis lived through. You know, he lived through incredible physical deprivation. He worshipped, or he abided by Lady Poverty and Lady Austerity. So he was a very, very austere man, and it really led to his early death. And I tried, this is a copy of incident. I tried to emphasize the face that shows austerity and the tough life that he led. This relates to Francis's sermon to the birds. Many birds converged to hear him preach. The stigmata, and the robe. I've seen one of Francis's robes in Assisi, and it's really it's more black than gray. But at the time that I needed this, I was very attached to a conventional Franciscan church. I also named this one as the parish gift on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of ordination of the priest of the parish. St. Clare of Assisi. Now, I always get very emotional when I talk about this icon. It's a really sweet icon. It's called St. Clare in the Miracle of the Roses. In the background is a representation of the chapel of San Damiano. And this is where the cross, San Damiano, spoke to Francis and told him to repair my church. Initially, Francis thought that he took it literally, or figured literally, and he set about trying to rebuild various churches around Assisi. He finally got the real meaning and embarked on the life of austerity and monasticism. Clare, it's believed that she was around 15 years old when she fled her family and entered San Damiano to form her convent of the Poor Clares. The story behind this icon is that Francis and Clare were walking together one day in the winter. They passed an inn, and the innkeeper started yelling at them that a monk and a sister should not be seen together. So Francis said, I'm out of here. And Clare said, when will I see you again? And Francis said, the roses are blooming again. There they are. I just added this icon recently to the slideshow. It's a Coptic icon. My wife and I have friends, Egyptian friends, who run a little cafe, the former Gabby's Cafe in the middle of town, 791 Princess Street. They're an interesting couple, run a little cafe, highly educated. The lady is an obstetrician and a gynecologist. She's flipping hamburgers. Her husband is an engineer. But they're doing okay. The main feature of Coptic icons is the simplicity. The art had largely been lost in Egypt, but was recovered by Professor Isaac Fanu. Between 1960 and 1980, he brought back Coptic iconography. Very simple icons. The idea being that they were highly abstracted away from naturalism. He wanted, for Coptic icons, wanted to be minimalistic, not to distract the viewer by a lot of background information, a lot of extraneous stuff, focus on the images. And like Orthodox icons, here's the nomenclature for Mary. I forgot to explain that way back. In icons of Mary, you'll always see around her the letters M and P, Mu and Rho, and on the other side, O and Y, V, Omicron and Upsilon. And these refer to Mary as the Theotokos, God-bearer, the Mother of God. The Mother of God, the God-bearer, the Theotokos, Mother of God. And the other main feature of Coptic icons is, again, the large features, the large eyes. Partly that was the physiology of people from in those areas, and also it refers back to the ancient hieroglyphic god Horus, who has the all-seeing eye. And again, Jesus is holding a scroll. Mary is pointing to him. John is mentioned waiting. Here's the cruciform halo as well. The few stars symbolizing Mary's virginity. Hello?
Do you have a favorite canvas size that you work with? No.
I just do what my teacher tells me to. It's amazing, he brings these incredible boards to fit the icon we're going to paint. And the labor going into producing an icon board is just mind-numbing. Layer after layer of gesso, sanded down, a layer of linen or cotton cloth, saturated gesso, sanded down. When we start out, the boards are as smooth as glass. It's just incredible. I don't know how acrylic paint sticks to them, but it does. This is not an icon except in the broadest sense of the word. St. Javelin of Kiev. As a fundraising endeavor for the Ukrainian military, the Ukrainian people, the company started out, well, first in Toronto and then in Ukraine, producing all kinds of Ukrainian stuff for sale. And I was particularly struck by this image. And I bought both a bumper sticker and a t-shirt. I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with the way I captured the expression on her face. What I did do was extract more from the original. There's no halo and no garments associated with Mary. One of my very devout Catholic friends, of course, she thought it was Madonna, and why is she carrying a weapon? Supposedly a javelin missile launcher. But it's not Mary, it's not the Madonna. Many icons show weapons on saints. We'll do more, we're going to do the Archangel St. Michael. Michael is normally prepared, presented in full Roman armor, ready for battle, symbolizing he is the commander of God's armies. One of my friends finds that very hard. But you know, it's really just a cartoon figure that's been adopted, more in the style of pop art that was popularized and made into high art by the pop artist Royal Atkinson. You know, a whole group of comic book images that became high art. And this is what we will be working on tomorrow. The Archangel Saint Michael. This is one that I've painted several at home to give away as gifts because it's relatively simple. I don't know how much you're going to get done in an hour tomorrow, but there will be painting instructions that you can work on at home if you wish. One of the striking things about this image, it really portrays the androgyny of archangels and angels in general. Very often, images of the archangels, they look more like women, but they have male names. And the tradition is that archangels are disembodied entities. They're neither male nor female. They're not visible. Hence, the rather androgynous nature of the images. This is not a GPS, although one article I was reading referred to as an antenna in brackets. It's meant in ancient times, messengers or a headband. It's called a diadem, and it symbolizes the archangel's obedience to God's command, his willingness to do God's will. But it's not a GPS, so God can keep track of where he is. And here's a slight reference to the armor that Michael is often shown wearing. I have some pictures at home. He is in full Roman battle armor, very intimidating, but with a strangely androgynous face. So we'll work on this one tomorrow. It's a nice icon to paint. It's probably simple. I've traced all the images on the boards, on the canvas boards. No, they're on the instructions. But that is the dirty secret. This is glorified paint by numbers. What I'm doing it for the picture.
It's the,
I don't know.
okay.
I was looking for that. I was looking for an answer that way.
Okay.
Doctor, yeah.
But it's a sweet icon. It's not terribly difficult to paint. Oh yes, the big thing about this one is the original was painted by the great Russian master Andrei Rublev in the early 1400s. It's estimated to be around 1405. Rublev was the great master of Russian, old Russian iconography. And some of his icons are, we would all know them when we saw them. They're pretty primitive looking. This is highly extracted from the original. I have color copies that I worked on when I was in England teacher. The original was painted, I painted the original with her in egg tempera, which is quite a challenging medium. My American teacher just wanted egg tempera. He says, oh, that's too much work. He works exclusively in acrylics. Oddly enough, my teacher in England, who works entirely in egg tempera, was given a commission for an icon for Frederick the Consul. If I remember correctly, the icon is commissioned by the son of the late Anglican bishop of Fredericton. And I didn't put it in here because I don't have much about the symbolism, but it's a great, tall, long icon. The Virgin of St. Anne's Point. And I guess at the question, the commissioner, there are some elements that are common to New Brunswick. But oddly enough, she was given a really short time on this to pick the icon. So she called me of all people and asked me what kind of paint she should use, but she had to use acrylic paint. Egg tempera requires 6 months to fully cure before it can be varnished or shipped anywhere. 6 months. So she resorted to acrylics, the type that I use with my teacher. And I love to tease her about being a hostage to egg tempera. When I painted this one, in the truth, the only other male in the group in Walsingham, England, when he got home, I guess he left his icon that he sort of exposed his dog, and all the paint pot.
So I hope you like the
Yummy egg tempera for a dog. Yeah, they don't, they don't get these icon weeks away too. Poor guy, he lost a lot of money. And we will end with my self-portrait. Questions? We're at about 5 after 4 now. Yes.
Why do you not use spoil base?
Well, because of the toxicity of oil, the drying time. When I'm at Carnival, we only have a week. The painting week starts at 9 o'clock Monday morning. Usually the first hour is spent sniffing these self-introductions, user experience process. And my goal is always to be finished by noon on Friday, at which time we will start applying gold leaf and painting these beautiful rings around the icons. Both applying gold leaf and painting rings with incredible skill. I use a compass with what's called a drawing pen. It's like a fancy fountain pen that loads paint. It ain't easy. I tried, but I finally accepted that my icons are not going into the National Gallery. So they're just being gold. Yeah. Yes.
I was just wondering about the breastplate. Could it possibly be an old ephod looking at its jewels on it? I know that.
Good question. They are meant to be jewels. It may present or symbolize the importance of the RV. So yes.
Just wondering, before we finish, if you could reassure people about the supply list.
Oh, yeah. You've all probably seen the backside of I'll be providing all the painting boards, all the paint, all the brushes. The images are already traced on the board. And as Allison said, I guess a lot of you folks are from out of town and have access to a lot of this stuff. As best I can, I'll try and put together packages of cloths and water containers. I sent my wife a text to remind me to buy some plasticized disposable plates for mixing paint. The images are already traced. The color code, it's not written in stone. I've put together kits of all of these paints. They're not the best paint in the world. They come from I was pleasantly surprised at the quality of paint. And oddly enough, my teacher, the last time I painted with him 2 years ago, he was using, rather than the Joe Sonia professional artist quality paint, he was using a lot of art, deco art, Americana. That's, to me, that's dollar store stuff. Yes. But it's good paint. It's remarkably good paint. And also there's an advertisement at the bottom, a promo for my teacher who's upcoming retreats. Any other questions?
I'm assuming those little blue things are wings?
Yes. These are his wings. I'm not really sure. I'm just assuming they're sort of like where the wing joins the body. You're not seeing birds, the feathers are very thin. I didn't include that in my tracing because I really had a hard time painting. You don't need more aggravation and complications. There we are. Thank you very much, folks. So you're there. I'm very grateful for your attention to this. This has been a really pleasant exercise. It's nice to understand.
Thank you.
Sandra, I want to thank you very much for coming and sharing what is obviously a passion for you and might become a passion for some of us. You never know. I'm just really, really pleased that you agreed to come and do that, because I know that you were initially a little reluctant.
Well, I thought that it was going to be 3 sessions, 2 hours each, to all the same post. Even my teacher from Pennsylvania, who's a crazy man, couldn't talk for 6 hours in the same group of folks.
Or Philly the Bishop can.
Just then to carry on, we are at 4 o'clock or after. Those of you who are staying in residence will need to make your way to your car and find your luggage and check in to the residence. The front desk are expecting you. And you'll find that that front desk is monitored 24/7. So there's always someone there. Very helpful, I think. You have a little bit of quiet time. Dinner is in the Bannery Hall. It'll need perhaps to get out your map. But it is essentially out of this building, down beside the construction, cross Bader Lane, and then turning left just beyond the construction boarding about another 100 feet. It's not a long way. And I guess we'll deal with Grace when we get there. Seems a little premature at the moment.
If you're coming from residence, it's actually quicker to come via